rich and exciting morning this morning. I'm Jess Hayden, and on behalf of the Susquehanna Folk Music Society, I'd like to welcome you to today's artist-to-artist residency on women's music entitled Women's Music Saved My Life. As I mentioned earlier this morning, this event is funded through a CARES Act grant from the National Endowment for the Arts. Additionally, we are thankful for funding from the Pennsylvania Council of the Arts and the Cultural Alliance of York County. Find out more about this and other Susquehanna Folk Music Society events at susquehannafolk.org. During today's residency, we ask that you keep your microphone on mute and put your questions that you might have in the chat. Now on to folklorist Amy Skillman, who will introduce session 3, Driving the Music Home, Tricks of the Songwriter's Trade.
Thank you so much, Jess. And it has been a great morning. This is session 3, as she said. We've had some great storytelling, and now we're really going to dig into, I think, the meat of it, which is, we've been thinking about this question of what is women's music. And, so much of it is political. It's about creating messages for women, about women's empowerment, messages of love, of sorrow, of social change. And I think it kind of ranges from the very personal to the very publicly focused, world-changing kind of music. And so all 3 of our artist guests today are great songwriters and have a breadth of songs that I think they're going to share with you. And then our moderator, Kay Turner, is with us also. She also is a songwriter and someone with a really good understanding of kind of the cultural and political, I think, focus or work of women's music. So Kay, wait, before I turn it over to you, a couple of reminders if you want to use closed captioning, make sure you click on the CC button at the bottom of the screen and then access subtitles that way. And if you have questions, please put them in the chat. I'll be monitoring the chat and we'll be bringing those questions in toward the end of the conversation. And finally, if you're interested in reading the lyrics of any of the songs that our artists are performing for you today, you can access those on the Susquehanna Folk Music website. And Jess, can you or Lori put that link in the chat again, just so people have it in case they lost it from this morning? I think that's it, Kay. Let me turn it over to you.
Amy. Thanks very much. I would just like to give my personal thanks to Jess Hayden at Susquehanna for hosting this event, and also to Joe and Lori for helping us on the technical side. Always really important. And we've done extremely well today so far. Not a glitch in the works. So, yay. And that's always a question mark in the world of Zoom. So so we're going, as Amy said, we're going to get into we've told some great stories about how we originated, why we care about women's music, what women's music is. We've defined it and tossed the ball around a little bit. Now we really want to get into the songwriting aspect of what these women do and what women's music is centrally about. It's about a certain kind of messaging. I think Jamie made a very good point in saying that women's music is probably best defined by the consciousness of the audience who receives it. So those of us who make the music and make the songs, which are, of course, a blend of lyrics and music, are most interested in reaching an audience that wants to receive the message that we have to bring to them, or comes to our music, not knowing what that message might be, but can get something from it. So I think we'd like to start today a little bit. I think there's some different angles on this that our audience will be interested in. First of all, I think would be a little bit of on both sides of that very special coin called a song, to begin a process with each of you, just talking a little bit about your influences in terms of music, the songwriting side of it, the musical aspect of it. And this might have to do with instrumentation, and where you learned some of that, or who you've been influenced, the kinds of melodies and such that you've been influenced by. And then also on the lyrical side, who have you been influenced by in terms of writing your lyrics? So we'll start with that, question, and then we'll move on to talk about both of those elements of the song in terms of what you specifically do with them. Okay, Jamie, take it away.
Well, influences. Holy cow. Um, I was very influenced by 70s singer-songwriters like Carole King and James Taylor. And then when I found women's music, I was all about Meg Christian. And one of the reasons that I adore her is that she's classically trained and she was such a great guitar player. She earned the first guitar degree from UNC in Chapel Hill. A lot of people don't know that. And she didn't know how to read music when she started her degree. That's something that she learned there. And then she incorporated that into a folk style that she learned elsewhere. And so that's why she's a big one for me. I also love classic folk music. Huge fan of Steve Goodman. Steve Goodman, for those of you who don't know, he wrote, oh my gosh, that hit for Arlo Guthrie. It's just fallen out of my brain.
City of New Orleans.
Yeah, City of New Orleans. Thank you very much. I can name a million obscure songs that he's done, but one of the things I loved about Steve Goodman is that he was a triple threat. He was a great guitar player, he was a wonderful entertainer, and he was an amazing songwriter. He did serious songs, he did funny songs, and I loved how he mixed those two up. And then, of course, singer-songwriters like Joni Mitchell and Joan Armatrading. One of the things I loved about them was their use of open tunings. Joan Armatrading just breaks all the rules when it comes to writing music. I mean, her stuff doesn't always rhyme. It's very poetic. She uses a lot of metaphors, and so she was a big one for me.
Great, excellent. Okay, Bobbi, what about you?
Yes. um, the Carpenters, when I was growing up, we're all the same age. So the Carpenters, we had those Columbia, remember the Columbia Record House things that you could get like 10 8 tracks for $1, right? And Carpenters were a big one for me. I was raised, when I was in 3rd grade, it was time for me, or 4th grade, it was time for me to go to my first piano lesson. And I was so thrilled to be able to go to Mrs. Peach's house in Willow Street. And because my sister had been taking, she's a year and a half older. So, my mom has my mom's piano is a 1922 Steinway. So, who doesn't want to start playing on that piano, right? So I get to my piano teacher, and the piano teacher goes, okay, here comes the second armature. My sister is listening, will totally understand this, but I sat down at the keyboard. She's like, okay, I want you to go up and down the scale. Let's just do a C scale. She goes, no, up and down the same way. I'm like, okay. Okay, one more time, up and down the same way. And I could not go because my head was just spinning out other ideas. And she called my parents. She was very polite, but she called my parents and she said, save your money on this one. Keep in mind, this was the 60s, and she's like, she's not able to follow what she needs to follow. And, now, Jamie, you teach, we're all teachers in some way. It's like I have some fabulous things that the breakthroughs that I had with them were realizing that we all learn differently. And when you figure out how that one student learns, opposed to something else that you are trying to shove at somebody to say, this is how you have to do it, it's a breakthrough. And so I did not get a chance to or anything. I didn't know how to read music. I harassed my sister for the next 5 years by staring over her shoulder every time she practiced her piano. But piano became my first instrument. So my writing, when I started to write a lot, it's not my most comfortable instrument. Guitar, I'm attached to it. I think there's something to be said about an instrument that you embrace when you play it. Piano is fabulous. You just connect with your toes and the tips of your fingers. So it's different mechanisms when you play. But for me, trying to listen to a Carpenters song with all these overlapping harmonies and trying to find the chords on the piano and then going over to a guitar and playing it that way, the Carpenters became my big influence. John Denver, huge. I think we're all going to be in agreement for that kind of thing. The thing that really cemented me as a songwriter, even before I was actually going to write, because Anne didn't die until 85. So this is like 79 is when I started, 78, listening to Dan Fogelberg. And I'm like, wait a second. Dan Fogelberg, all of a sudden, it was the first person that I had heard who played the guitar parts, played the piano parts, played the bass parts. And I'm like, well, that's what I do. I hear both. So being able to hear somebody play and record their own stuff and multi-track, that's when I just got hooked on it. Big influences like that. And like Jamie says, Joan Armatrading, Joni Mitchell, Kate Wolf. Kate Wolf is a huge influence for me. My friend Bob Herr, I was probably 16 and I was in the basement of my parents' house and he came down and he knew that I was a guitar player. And he's like, listen to this music. This is going to change your life. And it was Walk the Way the Wind Blows, like Across the Great Divide with Nina Gerber playing guitar. And I'm like, oh my God, my mind was just blown off its hinges because I was hearing acoustic music that I could play along to, So Jim Croce, big stuff like that. So those were kind of my influences.
Those storytelling.
Storytellers, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, because my stuff tends to just be like, here it goes, tracks through, and this is the end of the story. I tend to write more in story song than anything. So that's my big influence.
Great, Bobbi. Very cool. Barb.
I started writing songs when I was in single digits, and I must correct a misconception today. I'm 63.
Oh,
You guys are old. 63. Except for Deb. Yeah, I started writing songs in elementary school, and one of the biggest influences for me musically was my dad and his voice. When he sang, he doesn't sing anymore, but when he did sing, he sounded just like Vaughn Monroe. And if you don't know Vaughn Monroe, he's from the 40s, and he sang Ghost Riders in the Sky, big hit back then. But I remember listening to Jefferson's Starship and their song White Rabbit.
Yes.
Yeah. So in the 60s, I was paying attention to the news, and I wrote a song, First I started dope, then LSD got to me. Those trips were bad. I felt I lost everything I had. And I just went on and on, thanks to Jefferson's Starship and watching White Rabbit. But as I got a little older, I started to be influenced a lot by, guitar-wise, by Glenn Campbell, Roy Clark. In songwriting, Mac Davis, I think he had a TV show where the audience would say a subject, I think, and then he would just come up with a song on the spot, which just I thought was fantastic.
Right, sure.
Yeah, and that was very influential to me. And as time went on, I was influenced a lot by also Dan Fogelberg, Ann and Nancy Wilson from Heart, Buffy St. Marie. I'm a huge fan of Buffy
Oh,
St.
yeah,
Marie.
Buffy St. Marie.
Yeah, her songs were so powerful and political, and I mean, she's what, 80 years old now and still singing.
Cranking it out. Yeah.
She just had a show in New York recently in the summer.
Yeah, I saw
Oh,
that.
no kidding.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she's
yeah.
just fantastic. She was another big influence. Then in more recent times, I would say I aspire to be able to write songs like Claudia Schmidt. She's a folk musician she was from Michigan here. And her songwriting is so fantastic. It's as though that spirit just moves right up through her body with no blockages, like no self-doubt, no comparing one to other people. Her songs are pure and just, I don't know how to describe it, but lyrically, her songs just blow me away. She's more of a folk musician and a little bit of jazz, does some jazz too. I would say those are the main influences. Mary Gauthier, I'm not sure how you pronounce her last name. It's French, and I think it isn't spelled like it's pronounced.
Gaucher.
Gaucher, thank you, Jamie. Mary Gaucher's songwriting is amazing too, and I just read her new book, and I just had to look it up, Saved by a Song.
Right.
And she writes about how, as a songwriter, her goal is to write lyrics that are all about truth, and that there's nothing in the way, and it's as simple of a message as you can possibly get it to be. But because it's truth, it's hugely powerful. And I think that's really elegant and might be the key to putting aside all of the extraneous things that you hear in your head, at least I do when I'm trying to write a song. I really admire her songwriting skills as well, and still learning, for sure. And then there's Bobbi Carmitchell. I love her songwriting too, and Jamie. I can't help it.
That's great.
So much.
This is great. Super. Well, I will just say that for me, I don't have an instrument. I did study the violin and I played the banjo for a while, way back in the day. But one time when I was working with a band years ago here in New York, and I was, writing a song with them, this friend of mine who was in the band, she said, you're one of those hummers. And I said, what do you mean? She goes, well, you already have the song hummed out in your head and you're going to hum it to us and then we're going to play it. And I was like,
that's great.
And I was like, yeah, I guess that's sort of the way it is. That's sort of what I've been doing for all these years. And so I realized that, in looking back, that I came from a family of hummers. Like my father was very musical and he always hummed little melodies to himself as he worked. My mother was a nurse who hummed, and my aunt couldn't sing at all, but she still hummed. So it was, there was kind of a cacophony of hummers in our family. And I guess that's where I got my, that's where my chops come from. They're not notable, but anyway, I think that music does come to us in powerful and amazing ways. Music is it's such a special gift. It's, if any gift is given by the goddess, it is music. So it's really always interesting to hear the stories of how, a particular song or a particular person influenced you. I mean, for me, the very first concert I ever went to on my own was Judy Collins at the Detroit Symphony Hall in 1964. And it was her first tour. And she stood under a spotlight in she played her guitar, and she was wearing a very simple gray crepe dress. I can still see it. And I just was kind of like, I was mesmerized. I'd never seen anything like it in my life, or heard anything like it. I had never gone to a live show of any sort. And yeah, it was pretty amazing. So
Wow.
yeah, I kind of went with the 3 J's originally: Judy, Joan, and Joni.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. Yeah. Anyway, these stories of influence are very, very important. They're very interesting. And again, you'll just hear me say this all day long, it is important for these stories to be noted because they flow into a larger story about how music is made and created, and why women play a particular role in the making of music.
Mhm.
So let's go dig a little bit deeper and get you all now to just talk a little bit about how you form a melody, how you get lyrical inspiration. What's your chicken and egg story? Lyrics first, or melody first, or some combo? And we'll go do a round on that, and then come back and have some songs. Okay, Bobbi, we'll start with you on this one.
It's funny. I was listening to Barb talk about her other influences. My parents, my dad was like, and I think, I wonder if it's the same for like everybody's, like Jamie's parents. There was a time, I'm kind of been working on a book for the last 10 years, 12 years, something. And it's historical fiction. And you go, I'm back in this like early 1900 time period, and even into the 30s, where, television and before maybe even radio, everybody learned an instrument. We were our own entertainment, and before we could turn a switch and be entertained. So it wasn't a question of whether you wanted to play an instrument, but what instrument you wanted to play, right? So there were all these, we all have, I think my parents, who, my mom was born in 21, my dad, they were both born in 21. So that's, had older parents. I'm wondering if that's kind of part of where I still had that. Here's the instrument. These guys my dad was from a big group of singers. He grew up with the Dorsey brothers, up in the coal regions. And my mom's first birthday present was a Steinway grand piano. So it wasn't even, honey, what do you want to play? But this is what you're going to play, because her dad was a church organist. So that was set in stone. And then as a kid, I'm walking around the house, dusting furniture, singing along with my mom, the Bass Brothers. She's like, find the bass line, where's the bass line in this song, so I'm listening to her. We hear our parents' influences, if we're lucky, of what it is that they want us to hear. And I just fell in love with playing bass, and played with Wind and Wood, and still have one here now. And I'm lucky enough to play my own bass tracks, because my mom was like, where's the bass note? Find the bass of the, and it's easier. I think, Jamie, you can attest to it when you teach guitar. It's like, what's the bass note of the chord? That's, if you can't get that, you can't go any further. So that's carried through for me all the time. So when I play and when I write, because I'm now as a single, well, now I get to play with Ash, but in a lot of my writing, when I went from the trio with the full everything to then being a soloist, my guitar playing I had to ramp up my playing, because I needed to fill the gaps that I wasn't hearing anymore with the two other guitars that were missing. So I had to learn how to do more of a walking bass line. I had to learn how to do more fillers to the chords, because I'm still playing the same places where we used to have three of us. So, and I think that's part of my writing process is record, and I can talk about that later. But so when I'm playing live, I really keep my left hand busy because I want to make sure that it's not just a strumming kumbaya kind of thing that's going to put everybody to sleep. It's going to put me to sleep first. So, so I think my writing kind of starts to reflect that of what's the movement of the song and how my guitar playing kind of holds that up. As far as, like I said, with the first song that I wrote for Anne, I wasn't like Barb. I mean, my first song was 1965 when I wrote a song about President Kennedy. And I'll sing it for you now, so you'll be able to see the level of which my songwriting has hopefully evolved. Courage, courage, bravery, and trust. People like President Kennedy had lots of courage. That's
That's good. That's
wow.
that's a
I'm
good
sure my
start.
parents are like, honey, one of these days you're gonna be something. But so I think because of being a storyteller, I've just it always tracks through for me as like, here's something to tell, here's the story about a person, here's a story about a caterpillar, here's a story about a whatever. That seems to be where I end up going. The one song, are we talking about specific songs now? Is that something you wanted me to?
I think we'll come back to that. I think we'll come back. Yeah.
Okay. Is that enough for you? Want me to pass it on to somebody else?
Do you want to talk about lyrics for a minute?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you guys are the same, but I can understand why people who think, because I fall into this category, people who think that crazy people are talking to them, that they hear voices. I go over train tracks, and I'm like, oh, that is, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? Because if you associate the rhythm, right? And Barb's shaking her head, and you're really going to be a good person to talk about this because your strumming and your rhythmic playing is so phenomenal. It's like the rhythm I get, I then am able to find the lyric that fits the rhythm. Right?
I have to laugh, Bobby, because I do something on a different tangent, but whenever my washing machine goes out of balance and the buzzer's going off, I start singing with it and use it as a drone. I come up with melodies. So yeah, we use the sounds around us.
Sure.
Yeah.
We use the sounds around us. Birds are a huge influence for me. Birds, like not the chickens that we have now, 30 chickens and 4 roosters. So it's like, it's off the table now for me being able to hear anything else except squawking. I want to get in there and lay an egg, but bird and the wind through the trees and the outside influences. That's for me. I get to hear the rhythm of it first, and then try to match the lyric.
Great.
So
great.
There you go.
Thanks, Bobby.
Sure, Kay.
Okay, Barb. Let's go. Go ahead, Barb.
So we're talking about chicken and eggs, right? And
Yep.
songwriting.
We're talking about chickens, eggs, and washing machines, and train tracks, and this is where women's music has obviously been centered for centuries, and no one knew.
Mm-hmm. I do both. I don't have a preference as to whether I do the lyrics first or the music first. Oftentimes, if I'm sitting around playing guitar, I'll just record it. And if it's because you come up with riffs every once in a while, or a melody might come. And so I can go back to that. It's really fun for me to go back and listen to sessions that I've done and say, oh, I really like that. I want to do something with that. Mm-hmm. I like to write poetry. And so sometimes I'll write a poem and then want to turn it into music. There was one poem that I wrote I wanted to have the experience of writing a song without having boundaries of like a verse, a chorus kind of thing, everything rhyming. I wanted it to be like a horse that was sprung from a corral. And so I just sort of did free-form lyrics that didn't have a melody that was consistent. And it was such a freeing experience to create a song like that and remove all those barriers that I and a lot of us put on our songs. I often am moved or inspired by things that are happening in the world, and it's a way for me to express my sorrow or my rage or my joy, and to also help to get other people to think about things. So, gosh, a long time ago, I wrote a song called Mama. And it was about my mother, and it was about her husband who was an alcoholic. And I wanted to get people thinking about alcoholism and how it affects families by sharing a very personal experience that I went through with that. And I had so many people at concerts that I would, when I'd sing this song, that would tell me that they had been denying what was in front of them in their family for so long, and that song hit them so hard that now they know they have to face it. And that was exactly what I had hoped. And of course, with that responsibility of being a songwriter and a performer, you have to know that you are impacting people emotionally. Hopefully, I mean, that's our goal, is to connect with others. But you also have to have the responsibility of bringing them back out of a place if you put them there, right? So, which we'll get into that, I think, in our next little segment, which is a good segue to our next speaker.
Great. Thank you, Barb. Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point that you make about the trajectory of a song in terms of how the audience will receive some material that is either painful or transgressive, and I think especially in terms of women's music and lesbian music in particular, sort of stepping into that territory of revealing things about your sexuality, or making a case for alternate, ways of being, is, it's, you have to have some bravery to do it, and also to finesse it so that it works both as art, but also as message.
Yeah, and I wanted to add to that. I went to a workshop at Michigan Women's Music Festival one year, put on by Rhiannon, who's just an amazing singer. And she was teaching us about the impact of one's voice on the person who receives the song, and how you have to be very responsible with your voice, and how that's going, music, to me, there's no barrier in place. When you hear music, I feel like it just goes right into you, and it may go into you and bounce right off because you don't like the kind of music it is, or it may hit you and make you start crying. As a person who sings to another person, you have to be very responsible about the delivery, and that you could be affecting another person at a very deep level. I always think about that. And that's true with songs. If you're talking about people coming out or facing really hard things in their life, you got to bring them back and give them a positive message when you're done.
Okay, great. Thanks so much for that. Jamie.
Well, I always joke that you have to be careful what you say around a songwriter, because, if we whip out our phone and type in a note, Or if, in my case, it's usually a notebook. Someone says something witty or interesting or a topic I think I might like to cover, it goes down in my little book so that when I have the headspace and the quiet time to write music, I go through that book. Sometimes it's my experience, sometimes it's somebody else's, and sometimes it's just a musical idea. I'm very inspired by live music. I'll go hear somebody in concert and I'll think, I want to write a song like that song that they did to open their set. And so I'll try to replicate that style, not necessarily learn the song, but be really inspired by them. And I really resonate with what y'all are saying about, music hitting at a deeper level and being responsible for that, and also being able to bring people out of that. And so I am a fan of all kinds of music. I joke that the only kind of music I don't like is opera, and that's mostly because it's in German or something and I can't understand it. But I like all kinds of music. So sometimes, I'll think of a topic and I'll think, well, maybe that should be, this style of music. I'm part of a songwriting group and they give me lots of ideas. And we have an assignment once a month, write a song, fill in the blank. And one month it was write a song with a Latin feel. And I had just learned some Cuban songs for a student and I thought, well, I'll borrow that. And so I ended up writing a song with kind of a Latin feel with a few Spanish words in it. And it was really fun. It's something that I normally wouldn't do. And it mixes well with some of the other things that I do. And I think too, I mentioned in an earlier workshop that I write a lot of comedy. About a third of my live show is comedy. And one of the reasons I started writing comedy, partly because it's just so satisfying to hear an audience laugh. It feels good for them to laugh. But also, if I've just done a really intense, serious song, it's a really good way to lift people up so that they can, get out of their seats at the end of the show.
Great. So what about lyrics and music? How do those intertwine for you?
I usually have lyrics first, but there's always some sort of musical ideas that I'm noodling around with. Lately, I've been using other songs as a guide for the melody and the chords. Like I just mentioned, the Latin song, I use these Cuban songs that I learned as a base. I have this really great ukulele book that I sometimes go through and just steal the chords from these old-timey songs. And so some of my recent songs have had sort of
cool.
that feel, which is really fun and very different than what I've done earlier. The lyrics, they're just all over the place. Like I said, I have this idea book and I just start writing.
Okay, great. Let's do just a really quick lightning round. We'll try this, where I'd just like to ask each of you to give us a lyric, just a line or two, not the whole song, that you consider to be sort of representative of your women's music project in terms of what you are specifically trying to say to women.
You mean an original song?
An original song, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I can't do that. There's
Okay,
not really,
no
for
problem.
Me,
No
for
problem.
me, there's not one
I
line.
sprung this on you.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else? We can move right along.
I can give you one.
Go ahead, Bobby.
Go, Barb.
Okay, go ahead, Bobby. Maybe
No,
Jamie
go.
can think of one.
No, go, Barb. Go, Barb.
Okay.
Go, Barb.
So this one is a song called What Happened to Woman. And the first few lines are, woman ran free, both heels on the earth. Her muscles were strong and she knew of her worth.
Great.
Her movement had purpose, her gait self-assured. She was judged not by beauty, but by truth in her word.
Beautiful.
Perfect.
Great.
Yep. Is that off no shirt? Is that no shirt required?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's and the other thing that if we're talking about songwriting, that if you, and I think we might get into that later, but if you set that, you listen to that lyric, and what if it's a song that you've never heard before for people who are listening, is it how is that presented? How is that served? Is it served with a nice little alternating bass line, picking song
Right.
in a nice pretty key of G that everybody can, like the people's key? Or is it something like, is it powerful, or is it like something in the wind had learned my name? It's like, so, and I think that's another part of what it is how it's once you get the lyric, then how do you, and that's what I think Barb's really good at doing, is because she does the spectrum. She does a song like Song for Rebecca and the song that she's talking about now, and matches it with the power, but then can also do the song that you wrote for your grandmother about the pies that she bakes. What's that one called?
In Her Smile.
Yeah, beautiful finger picking. So finger picking would work for that, but finger picking would not work for the lyrics that you just said. Yeah, that's another
Right. Okay,
aspect of it.
great. That was just I hope you didn't feel like I sprung that on you.
No,
You
not
did.
at all. I completely understand it. And some people can do that, but I feel like my original songs are complete packages. It's really hard for me to sing.
hard to grab a line.
Now, if you want to talk about Joan Armatrading songs, I can spout all kinds of favorite lines from her work.
Oh yeah, I know there's so many out there for sure, right?
Yeah.
I think the other thing is and I'm not sure if this is the session that we're talking about this one in, but your message that you want to get across, and then how is the best way to present it, again, on a platter. You can serve a peanut butter and jelly sandwich on a paper plate, or you can cut it up into really nice pieces and put it on sterling silver,
Right.
and it's going to taste a little better. How it's all in the delivery. And I think that's always a challenge. It's a challenge for me, because of where I am, for the most part, working as a musician. If I'm working, if I'm not, I'm off the road. I've been off the road for a while now. Got a day job in like mid 2000s because I didn't feel like touring as much and I was full time since can remember. And I was happy being off the road, but needed to offset it by not, playing 5 nights a week like I used to. And so now I'm kind of back at that point playing more local places where how do you then still get your music out and your message, and at the same time still be able to work in more of this is a really conservative area, Lancaster County. It's a little better now that I'm up here in Hershey. An hour away makes a difference, closer to the state capital.
So does
But it's
chocolate.
still, and the
So
chocolate,
does
yeah.
chocolate. It helps people
Right.
feel better.
Yeah, that doesn't hurt. So it's like, how do you deliver the message, and if I'm not sure that I'd be able to play Barb's the woman song as well as I would to try to, like, how do you, for me, a song that's coming to my mind, you're asking for a lightning round, is a song called Benny that I just wrote about, that's going to be on the next record. I've been playing it out now for about maybe 5 years, 6 years. And it's a story of me. There's a guy who's has a produce stand at the end of an old road down here. Thanks, Marie Group. And has a produce stand. And it's a story song of me having a conversation with this guy at his roadside stand. And we're talking about this, we're talking about that, talk about the weather and his wife's pies. And I know that he wants to ask me a question. And so he's trying to figure me out. And I know that he's trying to figure me out. And he's like, so do you and your husband live around here? And I'm like, here comes the question. And this area that I'm living in at that point is ridiculously conservative. And my experience of living on Anchor Road, I lived there for 26 years. I had my car stolen. I had my mailbox. I went through 12 mailboxes.
Whoa.
They were smashed. Now, there were 4 of them. My mailbox was one of the ones in the middle. So if you're a mailbox smasher and you're driving, you're just going to hit the one on the outside. you're not going to stop and make the point to hit the one in the middle, because that's where the rainbow flag is painted and the mailbox is lavender. So I'm just trying to live my life here in the middle of nowhere by painting a rainbow on my mailbox, and the word gets out that there's a lesbian living there. So bam, they smash the mailbox, put another one up, bam, smash the mailbox. My landlords finally say, we're gonna just get these welded ones. They end up looking like torpedo launchers, so nobody can smash your mailbox. I'm like,
Wow.
thank you. We put it on a big thing. We weld it together. There are now 4 torpedo launchers on this big, huge piece of metal that's dug into the ground in cement. Halloween night, the same person who smashes my mailboxes on a ridiculous basis decides he's going to show the world, and he digs the entire thing out, the base and everything, drags it back into the woods, and leaves the shovel in the hole.
Whoa.
So
Whoa.
when I have to think about how am I going to A, survive living there, B, survive being a songwriter, what am I supposed to do? How do I stand up and still get my message across,
Wow.
and still work, and still, my car was stolen, my cats were poisoned, lots
Wow.
of stuff happened. So
Unbelievable.
so the best way to do that is to try to make it a universal message. So it's about me standing at this guy's stand, and everybody knows where this guy's stand is because it's a real person. And I stretch the expression a little. I stretch the experience a little bit, and I'm like, he wants to ask. I know what he's asking, but how do I respond to it? So I say,
Right.
yeah, it's just me and my dog. We live around here. And he's like, okay. And then I take it a little step further, the part that doesn't actually happen. He's like, our daughter Judy looks a lot like you do. And, she and her dog, you know what? They're really happy too. So it's like, okay, so now we're starting to be it's a little better. And now I'm starting to feel like I don't have to say, I'm a big old honkin' lesbian living in this Bible Belt town. So I think he's okay. He gives me an extra couple of ears of corn. And as I'm driving away, I laugh out loud at my luck. This is the line. I see a pride sticker stuck there in his old pickup truck. So it didn't happen that way, but it is a way to be able to go, oh, that's kind of a clever way of saying, we met, we talked, we didn't kill each other. He gave me a couple of extra ears of corn, and I keep going back every time I'm there, right? So that's a long, involved way of saying.
That's great. That is great.
That's
yeah.
Yeah.
That brings it to the place where we should hear some songs. Do you want to play a little bit of Benny? Do you want to do that now, or were you going to do that later?
I could just play the tail end of it if you want.
Play the tail end. That'd be fabulous.
Okay, sure.
And then we'll go over to Barb and Jamie and get some songs.
Okay, sure. And what's really great about this song is people, when I play it, I teach people the chorus. You guys, that's what women songwriters are great doing. It's like, even if it's a complicated chorus, I'm going to teach it to you. And you're going to sing it, because then when you sing it, you become part of that song. You own that part of it as an audience member. And maybe when you leave, you won't think, you'll think about the next time somebody makes a stupid joke about a lesbian, and you can stand there and go, yeah, you know what? I don't think that's cool anymore, So here's how it goes. So we've already met Benny. He's talking about his dad his dad helped lay the foundation for an old dam. The river's just etched in his soul, right? After I say it's just me and my dog, he says, we can sure use some strong gals like you in these parts. And if you keep yourself open, this river gets to your heart. And our daughter Judy looks a lot like you do. She and her dog are mighty happy too. Might not be good enough for many, it's sure good enough for me. And there's never been a question, this is where I was meant to be. So when I meet my maker and I take that final ride, just bring me down to this part of town and the river will provide. So then he gives me the peaches, and I'll speed it up here. So he threw in some peaches with my dozen ear of corn. He thanked me for stopping and not blowing my horn. And as I pulled away, I laughed out loud at my luck. I saw a pride sticker stuck there on his old pickup truck. So if it's good enough for Benny, it's sure good enough for me. And that's how it goes and goes on and on and on. And I'll let somebody else sing now. So there you go.
Bobby, that was beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for the whole package, as Jamie would say. Okay, Barb, let's have some music from you now.
So I gotta remember which guitar I'm doing here. This one. One of the things we were talking about is how we get through playing difficult songs. And when I left Michigan and moved to Pennsylvania back in '92, I love Michigan. I think it's the most beautiful place in the whole entire world. And it was really hard for me to leave. And I went up to Isle Royale, which is a national park island in Lake Superior, and spent 3 weeks as a resident artist on my way to Pennsylvania, leaving Michigan. So I wrote the song called My Michigan. And every time I would perform it, I would cry. It made me cry. And it made people in the audience cry, especially those who had lived in Michigan before. So I had to figure out, how can I get through this song without crying? And I figured, well, if I use the other side of the brain, maybe that'll break that emotional connection, right? So I started doing statistics in my head when I'm singing that song. I started thinking about maggots in a garbage can. I started thinking about disgusting, gross things so that I wouldn't cry. And it worked. So fast forward to, I guess, 2017. My family experienced an event that was just absolutely heartbreaking and tragic. And I wrote a song the day after this tragedy ended. And I didn't know if I would ever be able to perform it because it is such a painful thing. And so that's the song I'm going to play for you and show you how you can get through a really hard song without crying. Knock on wood. And I think I'll tell you what the song is about first. I was going to wait and tell you about it later after the song. But my nephew struggled with mental illness for most of his adult life as a result of sexual abuse he experienced when he was young. And he just disappeared one day and was missing for 2 weeks. And they found him floating in a pond at the end of that 2-week period of time. And we still don't know what happened. We don't know at all what happened to him. And that's such a horrible thing to not know, when someone goes missing and are found, like what happened to them, right? So the day after he was found, I wrote this song. It's called Hey Little Boy. And I wrote it to reach out to others who've lost loved ones in a similar situation, but also what the impact is of sexual abuse on people, especially when they're children. Well, it's bad no matter how old you are, it's bad, but for him, he could never recover from what happened to him. Hey, little boy, won't you come on home? Hey, little boy, won't you come on home? There are bad, bad people in this old world. There are bad, bad people in this old world. Hey, little boy, won't you come on home? You don't have to run away. You don't have to run away. There are those of us who love you still. I loved you then and I always will. Hey, little boy, won't you come on home? It's not the thing what they did to you. 10 years in prison ain't enough, it's true. And the nighttime never goes away. There's nothing you could do. You were so small. Was a heavy weight for you to bear. Heavy weight for you to bear. Your mama tried to comfort you. Your pain was deeper than we knew. Hey, little boy, won't you come on home? Your mama said you were doing good. Mama said you were doing good. Something happened strange one day. You left the house and never came. Never came home. Hey, little boy, time to come on home. It's an awful thing what they did to you. 10 years in prison ain't enough, it's true. And the nighttime never goes away. There's nothing you could do. You were so small. 14 days and 14 nights. 14 days and 14 nights. Your mama calling out your name. Your grandma calling out your name. Hey, little boy, won't you come back home? Got the news that you died today. Got the news you died today. Reach for you, there's no one there. Reach for you, there's no one there. Hey, little boy, time to go on home. Hey, little boy, time to go on home. Hey, little boy, time to go on home. Well, I almost made it.
Thank you. Thank
Well,
you.
had to do some addition up there. 2 plus 2 is 4. 4 plus 4 is 8. But that's what you got to do to get through those hard songs. At least I do. do math.
That's a powerful
Thank you
song.
so much. Thank
It's a
you.
powerful song.
Thank you.
Very, very.
Kay, how much time do we have? I wasn't
I'm coming
sure.
to you now, Jamie.
Oh, yeah. How much time do we have? I didn't know whether to do
15 minutes.
Oh, excellent. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So I thought I'd follow that beautiful, beautiful song up with something completely and utterly different. I have a, let's see, maybe let's scoot back here a little bit. I have a song called Menstrual Tango, which I don't do anymore because I'm 64 and it just seems weird to sing about that topic. So I thought I could update it. And let's see, where was I before for the sound check? I don't remember. I'll just stay right here. So I thought that, I wrote a tango before, then maybe I'll write a mambo now. Don't tell me to try meditation or to drink that nasty tea. Ointment from wild yams will not cure what's ailing me. Menopause mambo, menopause mambo, menopause mambo. I'm gonna strip to my underwear. If you don't turn up the air, then you'll see I've lost my butt. Take pity, send chocolate. Menopause mambo, everybody sing. Menopause mambo, menopause mambo. I need moisturizer everywhere. You don't want to know where I'm growing hair. And the thing that I most dread is that the gray isn't just on my head. Menopause mambo, menopause mambo, menopause mambo. I don't want to wake in the middle of the night unless it involves Rachel Maddow and candlelight. Menopause mambo. Step away, I'm sweaty.
That is great. Brilliant. Brilliant.
Thank you. Thank you. I lost a gig because of that song one time. There were some radio DJs who wouldn't play it. I mean, I don't mention any body parts you can't say on the radio. But...
It's just crazy.
It is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, because men are still running the world. That's why it's crazy.
Girls in the Nose, we had a song called Menstrual Hut, and it was, I'm gonna update that one. That's giving me a good idea there, Jamie.
Thank you. Happy to be of service.
All right, this is great. Well, hey, I think if we've got about 10 minutes left, we could certainly continue conversation, but I would love if any of you of the three musicians here, if you wanted to play like a portion of another song, just a or a little medley of some kind that, again, might give us more insight into the relationship of your lyrics and music to the women's music genre that we've been talking about today. I don't think we have time for complete songs from everyone, but if you've got a couple of little threads that you could throw at us, I think we'd appreciate it. And also, if you want to push albums, we'd be happy to hear about them as well, where we can find these songs.
Yeah. I'd love to. I mean, I haven't heard, I'm not sure what guitar Barb is getting, but I think it would be a great, if we're talking songwriting, that song for Rebecca that I had mentioned about, to be able to hear what, like from a songwriting standpoint, if Barb could do that lyric, and then change the delivery between like finger picking it and playing it with that. I thought that might be a good example if anybody's good for that.
Great. Sounds great.
Are you saying Song for Rebecca or What Happened to Woman?
The song for Rebecca.
Sure. So,
what's your tuning, first of all?
Standard.
Okay.
And I just put strings on this, but I don't think I played it, so it could turn into something really. We'll see how the strings go. So, Beck, I think it's time to go. The stars up in the mountains, they are calling. I think it's time to get away before the stars of Orion start falling. So that's what it could be like. This is what it is like. Yeah. Dick, I think it's time to go. The stars up in the mountains, they are calling. Think it's what the city's done, a way to keep the women home. Mama's always worrying about you and me alone up in the highlands. I say it's what the city's done, way to keep the women home and yearning. Play that. It's completely different.
Yeah.
Totally.
Completely different.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting. Very cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Bobby or Jamie, do you have a thread that you can throw out?
Go, James.
And we'll catch your thread as you throw.
I think Jamie's getting ready. Unmute yourself, James.
Yeah, I thought I'd play something on the shrunken guitar. This is a part of one of my songs. And, somebody mentioned earlier sing-alongs. And I don't do a lot of sing-alongs, so I thought I would write one that was really easy to sing along on. So if y'all feel like you want to jump in on it, I'll leave out part of it here, but I'll get the gist across. She cares about the earth. Pollution is such a bummer. She's so spiritual. Got a pagan sticker on her Hummer. She talks, and all I hear is blah 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 blah. So it's got a few verses. You can just join in on the chorus. I've got one more chorus. You can sing it with me. Here's the bridge. It's what your dog hears when he's eating the cat food. It's the adults in a Peanuts cartoon. It's everything that you hear on on Fox News. And this one's for them. Here we go. Next time you yammer at me, you go on ahead. I've gone to my happy place. All I hear in my head is everybody now. Blah, 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 big finish. Blah, 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 blah.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
My pleasure.
Oh,
Because I hate it when somebody says this is a sing-along and it changes key 4 times and it's got 87 verses.
Keeps you on your toes.
Bobby, do you have a little thread here?
You know, I thought I brought
A
my
lanyard,
prop.
as they say.
I thought I brought my prop down with me, but I went up to get my prop and I ended up bringing back the Chris Williamson record. But my sister and I wrote a song. My sister's a fabulous parody writer. She steals lyrics, or she steals melodies and changes the lyrics of all the classic fabulous songs. But this one, she actually she actually, I think, wrote the lyrics and the music to this. This is a song called Doll Days, D-A-Z-E.
Doll days.
Yeah, and we would play this with. She was always the straight man. That always helped a lot because she is a straight woman. So the song is about. It's a way to kind of out me without outing me. Again, it's like, how do you deliver a message that people kind of go, it's a good song, and then go, oh wait, I think I just realized that one of those women is a lesbian, and that's okay because it's got a funny melody to it. But so we hold up 2 different types of dolls. She has a Barbie doll, and I have a Jane West doll. And see, Jane West, turquoise denim, the doll that would move everywhere. So I'm trying to think how I could do this. Give me a second. Okay, so let me just give you the lyrics. While going through our toys one day, there were dolls and games we used to play. We would start to reminisce about the folks that we would kiss and how we both turned out to be this way. And then Anne would sing, I want to dress like Barbie. I want to wear her clothes. I want her slim trim waistline, her tiny button nose. Then I'd hold up my doll, Jane West, and I'd be like, say howdy, ma'am, to Jane West. Notice her western flair, the quintessential cowgirl with flattened platinum hair. When I was young, I played with Barbie all day, hoping I would turn out this way. And then the sad reality hit. I'd spend my life with really small tying knots and playing in dirt. I'd hold up to Jane West. My dad said that I'd always get hurt, but Jane was she was like the person who guided me through. So by the end of the song, people have been they can either relate to the Jane West gal or the Barbie gal. And I had people would come up to me at the end of our set, and these were straight bars, you guys. These were and continue to be straight bars, and we still play these. And we get these big truck driver guys coming up saying, "Play that song about that Jane West doll. That's a pretty good one." So it's like it's all in the delivery. When you have somebody smashing your mailbox, you learn to figure out how to get the message across. So
there's all kinds of stuff you can say in a funny song that you could not get away with anywhere else.
You can get away with it. It's all in the presentation. Yeah. Yep. That's a quick example of another way around. If we have any more time, we can talk about more stuff later. But there you go.
Well, we're just about out of time. I want to thank the 3 of you for a wonderful session. I think that there's a lot to play out with this session. We just got some snippets about really what it's like to play in the straight world and how we all handle that in terms of trying to get a message across on behalf of our sisterhood, right? Not to
Sure.
the sisterhood, but on behalf of the sisterhood. So,
And it's not even so, and you know, Kay, you can go bigger. It's not just playing music, but it's how we as women, whether we're feminists, whether we're lesbians or straight women, how we live in a male world, it gets bigger,
yeah,
you know, and
yes,
how,
yes.
you know, I mean, let's
you
just
go.
look, there are bumper stickers in my part of town that have bumper stickers that say Joe and the hoe. It's like, really?
Yeah.
You're going to call the vice president of the United States the hoe because it rhymes with Joe? Are you
Right.
freaking kidding me?
Right.
So let's not be fooled that women's music may
yes.
still be in the mainstream, but we have so much distance to still go.
Right.
With all
I mean,
of this.
just another, yes. And, you know, another reason to, you know, value the name of this entire day together. Women's music saved my life. You know, I mean, that is still a critical, a critical way to think of why women's music mattered and still does.
Yeah.
So I'm going to turn it over to Amy. I think she's going to give us some final instructions.
Uh-oh, here comes the boss.
Yes,
Here comes the boss. Yeah, the boss lady. Here she comes.
That was fabulous. And once again, another session that we could have spent 2 or 3 hours on. Just talking about it. I want to let everybody in the audience know that there will be more music coming. I know that we're all eager to hear more songs, and the round robin at the end really honors these 3 women and their abilities to sing amazing songs and lyrics that get a message across. So thank you, Jamie, Barb, and Bobbi, for sharing your stories and your snippets of music and your music. And thank you, Kay, for guiding us through this conversation. Again, I want to thank Lori Brandenburg and Jess Hayden from Susquehanna Folk Music Society for being our stage crew.
And Joe.
Yes. And Joe for being
And
our
Joe.
sound engineer this morning. Yes. Anyway, it's now 2:00. It's a little bit after. The next session starts at 2:15. Remember to go back to your email, your ticket confirmation email, to get the link for the next session. The next session is called Rounding Out the Sound. And this is where these 3 amazing artists will talk about just how they build the mood of the music. We've heard a little bit about it, but I think the next session will really dive into that in more depth, and we'll get some insights into the real skill and mastery of their technique. So we'll take a short break and we'll be back at 2:15. See you then. Thanks again.